It's Chillmonger. It's the Jaded Fanboy. We got Scotty Hawkward MF. We've got Rogue Comics. Sean's representing the Comics Pals. SSJK.Sanctum. Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny is an abysmal failure numerically. Like, this movie isn't performing at the box office. Its Friday numbers are 67% lower. Let me pull it up for you. Then daily there 67% from the last week's Friday. And unfortunately, yes, that does include the Thursday numbers that they combined into the 23 million to become Friday. This is bad. And this is where my mind is. Kathleen Kennedy. She's been the producer and the head of the studio at Lucasfilm. She gave us a trilogy where each movie was rewritten by somebody who wasn't attached to the prior. It was not flowed. What's the word for unplanned? I'm trying to look for a bigger word with more syllables than unplanned. It was an
It was not well thought out.
It was not well thought out, and there was no unity, and they were given free reign. Rian Johnson's spoken about how he could have done anything, so she does that. Next comes Mandalorian, which is popping, and I'm in favor of it. I credit Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, mostly Jon Favreau. We had Book of Boba Fett, which she had some studio interference, where she put Grogu back in it to get, according to the rumors on the internet, everybody, the Grogu was returned back in that show because she wanted to do that. We've had shows like Kenobi. I got problems with Kenobi. Some people like it. I respect it if you do like it. We've got shows like Willow, which have been pulled from Disney Plus because it would cost them more money to have it on Disney Plus, and they'd have to pay royalties and whatnot. Let's just take it off. Nobody watched that anyway. We had Solo, which was a bomb, and this is where we are now. A few of her last movies decreased in popularity from Force Awakens to what's it called? The Last Jedi to
Rise of Skywalker.
Rise of Palpatine. You're right. That's the name of the title. They decreased in profitability, not popularity. The place that this woman has led the studio to film-wise, after a big break, it's been 4 years since the last Lucasfilm movie. We're not going to do a Star Wars, even though Disney purchased them for Star Wars. We're going to do something different because, Lucasfilm does own Indiana Jones and it does own Willow. We'll just dust these projects off and try them out. It's failed. And it's failed horrendously, hugely. What I'm trying to throw at you guys is this enough to get her fired? Or is this woman impenetrable? And will she just, dust off and be at Star Wars Celebration in 2 years in Japan perfectly fine? I think that this is the last movie that she's going to be a studio president of. And there's data to support why they'll get rid of her. Let's not forget the attraction that is a Star Wars cruise as well. What's the name of it, Scott?
Halcyon.
That thing. And we know that they chose to use newer characters as opposed to leaning on the older stuff. And it's out of business now. I think you can still you can get tickets, but you can't get tickets for anything next year. They're going to have a deadline on when it's over. She's been failing, and it's showing up in the numbers. We can't just say she made $1 billion films. Rogue One still made $1 billion. And I know that Rise of Palpatine, it made less money, but it's still $1 billion, and that's a lot of. We can't say that anymore. When Indiana Jones is not even going to reach, maybe it won't reach 300 million, maybe, and that'll be worse than what Solo did. Considering inflation and why movie ticket prices are way higher,
it might not even pass 600.
It's not going to pass 600. No, it's probably not going to pass. It won't pass 400. It's bad. It's looking bad. Is this Kathleen Palpatine's last straw? I'll go to the Jaded Fanboy first. Yes. Next, Scotty. Okay. Go ahead, Jaded.
Okay. Apparently, a lot of the people complaining and bitching about this movie apparently forgot the Crystal Skull existed. Okay, Kathleen Kennedy has it's irrelevant because again, if you take the Star Wars movies, the George Lucas Star Wars movies, the prequels were just as garbage as it was as it was. So saying that because Kathleen Kennedy directed three or was in charge of 3 garbage movies doesn't mean anything, because guess what? George Lucas was in charge of 3 garbage prequel movies.
They made money. They were profitable garbage prequel movies that sold toys. If the toys and the T-shirts
weren't profitable?
No, I'm not saying that they weren't profitable, but I'm saying is that, again, they were profitable because, but again, if you take the prequel movies, they were profitable because people were going, oh my God, after 17 years, George Lucas is bringing back You know,
Same
the Star
with the
Wars
sequels.
franchise.
Same
Okay.
with the sequels.
Again, but George Lucas wasn't in charge of it, but people were going, oh, it's, again, blaming Kathleen Kennedy and say, well, again, that's not so much blaming Kathleen Kennedy, but saying that she is invulnerable. It's like, no, everybody's invulnerable depending on the position of the director and the producer.
Yep, she's got a boss. She's got a boss, and that boss is Bob Iger. He knows what, and she's got a track record. She's got a track record of diminishing values in her in your studio.
And she's already got an excuse for it. It's the fans' fault. It's not her fault. The fans.
Pause for one quick second. Phantom Menace made $924 million. Attack of the Clones made $645 million, and the last one, Sith, $868 million in their box office.
Those are good. Those are good profit numbers. So it's like, why should she be upset over, you know, being worried about her job?
2 billion, 1.5 billion.
Those are good numbers.
But Indiana Jones' Dial of Destiny flopped. It's flopping as we
speak.
Indiana Jones isn't a Star Wars franchise. Indiana Jones, I mean, the people that remember Indiana Jones are Jada's age. And I don't think that it's attracting a new audience. I said, oh man, I want to be an archeologist when I grow up.
And whose decision was it to budget this film at a rumored $329 million?
That's the spending. Yeah, that's frivolous spending.
Their fault. That's their fault for the budget.
I mean that budget is touching like 300 million.
Have you seen the movie, Joe?
No, I don't. But I'm not a fan of Indiana Jones, and I'm kind of happy it failed because I don't want to give Kathleen Palpatine my money and like justify her having a job there. If I'm going to be so anti, what?
Explain this, because see, here's the thing. From the beginning, like people have assumed that somebody at Walt Disney decided, hey, we got $4 billion lying around. Let's buy Star Wars. And you know what we'll do? We'll give it to Kathleen Kennedy so she can run it into the ground because we have nothing. What are we going to do with this $4 billion? We got an extra $4 billion.
I don't care. Like, George Lucas himself selected her because he thought, you know, this.
Exactly.
I don't care. What matters is the performance that has been given from the Lucasfilm studio president that she gave has been bad, and there should be consequences for this. And I'm just asking a question, throwing out to you guys if there will be. Jaded says no. Sean, will there be repercussions to the failure of extreme proportions that is Dial of Destiny?
So, really quick, I want to say that as someone who grew up with Star Wars, like I'm sure we all did, like, you know, grew up watching those movies and enjoying them, this is the first time in my life where I can say I don't even know if I'm a Star Wars fan anymore because of what I perceive to be the lack of quality over the last decade plus with what they have offered. And unfortunately, you do have to look at the top. And so when you look at Kathleen Kennedy and you look at the performance and you look at some of the decision making as far as what's been greenlit, because I agree with you, Joe, there should be question marks as to why you would greenlight or budget to that degree an Indiana Jones movie at this point. But I digress. I do think there need to be consequences because. Did
you see the movie, Sean?
I didn't, and I'm not a fan of Indiana
I'm just
Jones.
curious. I'm just curious where they spent the $350 million. Like, because it's not like it's not, no. I'm not being sarcastic. Like, I'm just like because there's no like major like Skybeam or anything. Like, there's nothing crazy.
Reshoots,
I don't know where they
de-aging,
spent the $350.
COVID lockdowns contributed
I think
to.
it was more expenses as opposed to money that was put into the movie.
And also, let's remember that we are in a different time, right? So post-COVID, people actively choose to go to the movies less. They're a lot more selective with what they choose to spend their money on. In turn, studios have to also be more selective. And so when you greenlight a movie and you give it that kind of budget and it doesn't return, that's a bad look. So to me, there do have to be consequences. You cannot have Star Wars, one of the most popular, successful franchises of all time, run it into the ground and keep your job. And it's nothing against her. I don't know her. She's probably a lovely person, but the performance is not been good.
Kathleen Kennedy has been our tribal chief for 4,200. Stop blaming the Rona. It's nothing but an excuse to play. I think that Super Mario made a lot of money. I think that Spider-Man No Way Home made a lot of money in that Christmas week. Avatar Way of Water. So, but people are still selective. That doesn't disprove what Sean was saying. There's going to be a portion of people, whether it's only 1% or whether it's 20% of the audience, there are still people who are a little bit weary. Like you live in New York City, right? Masks are still happening, right? I live in Toronto. Masks happen. I see people who are, a little bit. They won't go at 7 p.m. They'll go see a movie maybe at 1 o'clock if they go.
Right.
Well, I think also too, part of the problem with Star Wars the way it is now is the social media of it, because for some reason these companies see what Twitter does and the effect that it could have. So when The Force Awakens came out, people were like, okay, well, it was a good movie, but it essentially was just Star Wars like redone, 30 years later or whatever. So maybe Kathleen Kennedy or whoever was in charge of Star Wars, like, well, we got to fix that. So what we'll do is we'll get a director and he's going to flip it on its end and it's going to make it like, a Star Wars movie that's not Star Wars or whatever. And we got Rian Johnson. And then when that's when everything started coming out. Like when
he was selected before that movie happened, before The Force Awakens, Rian Johnson was there and said, instead of having Luke just like meditating with rocks floating, let's not do that. Okay, can you change that ending? So he had influence on Force Awakens. I wish I could cite where I got that from, but Scotty didn't shake his head. So
I have also heard that.
I don't remember that.
I'm sorry. So Scotty, repercussions, right? She should be terminated. Will you go that extreme with me? Because I'm saying that this woman shouldn't have a job anymore as a studio. They could like exit her in a very noble way, like Lifetime Achievement Award. She is 70, and they take her and they say you're on the board, or you get the keys to the city, or whatever. Like symbolic little gesture. Just get her out of there.
But see, do you think she's the person making these decisions?
I was asking Scotty that. Let me ask. Yeah, she's the president. Scotty, how do you feel about
he says it so confidently, right? Yeah, she's the president.
Well,
I don't understand that.
Not like Disney said, "Hey, you got to do this or you got to do that." Like it'd be in your best interest, or maybe.
Oh, so somebody told her you should do an Indiana Jones movie.
Well, they have that IP. I mean, I'm waiting for them to get around to Die Hard and stuff.
So she's just a puppet.
I've been saying that. I've been saying that about Kevin Feige too. Like, you guys put so much responsibility on these people. Like, they're the only ones making the decisions.
Exactly, especially with that much money.
Well, if Kathleen has a separate street, we know she reports to a bigger boss, right? But the purpose she's hired for is to run Star Wars, and it's not to say that every single decision that she makes is her own, but a lot of decisions are being made by her. There's some stuff where the bigger people probably stepped in and say, "Hey, Kathleen, we want you to do this," but if the people at the top is telling them to do absolutely almost everything, like what's really the purpose of the person? Are they just a figurehead so they can take the blame?
I think you guys are blaming Kathleen Kennedy because she's the face of it. That's the thing.
Is she the face of it? Is Dave Filoni the face of it? Like, we don't know who the face of it is. She's the one out there talking because she has that level of pay. I don't think anybody at the Feige level, at the Kennedy level, they're not going to get fired for bad decisions at this point. I hate to break that to the fans, but they're literally not going to get fired for a bad movie.
I'm going to bring it to comic books because there was a guy that was in charge of DC. His name was Dan DiDio, and he was the guy that would be like the public guy. If there was something that went wrong, he would take the blame for it, even though he wasn't the one that was making that decision. Never heard that name in my
life. Who is it?
Dan DiDio. He was in charge of DC during the New 52 era. The comic books.
Comics? People don't read. Like, are we talking about comics or are we talking about live action?
I get your point, though. I get the pilot of the ship should go down with the ship type of thing.
Well, no. But he was just the guy that would take the brunt for, like, let's say it was an artist's fault or it was a writer's fault, whatever the case was, or the editors. He would be the one to take the hit for the guy, as opposed because he was the one that was in charge of everything. So
leadership, baby.
I think she is what he was to DC then.
I get that. I just think it translates differently at this level of money, responsibility. Like, there's so many people underneath them making creative decisions as well. And
what is Solo?
The fact that Filoni still talks to George every single day and signs off on half of the stuff they're writing, and everyone still wants to blame Kathleen Kennedy. It's like, mad people in their feelings, bro. People in their feelings. I think about things she said specifically that hurt them. Where did she touch you? Literally. Like, apparently people know me. I'm a huge fan. I love Disney Star Wars. because I like The Last Jedi.
Oh, me too.
Objectively, the
Filoni-
most
Let me talk.
objectively the most creative sequel movie they made.
I just got a problem with the lore stuff that and we've done that talk, but with George Lucas and Dave Filoni and the connection and what he's producing, that's great, that's fine. Kathleen Kennedy's Willow and Indiana Jones
Don't get
as
me
Style
started on
Destiny,
Willow.
but both of these things aren't Dave Filoni.
Sure.
It's what she has in common. The solo bomb.
But do you know how much of a part of Willow Warwick Davis was? Huge part of all the writing, all the stuff his character did. He's executive producing that.
And she produced it too, and she okayed her stuff. She said,
right, but you're going to tell Warwick Davis he can't do what he wants with Willow?
That's the job of the producer, yeah.
No, it's fun. It is
told Mark
fun
Hamill
for
you
him.
can't do Luke.
They want these people to have fun on set. Like, the audience has changed. Again, like, you want to talk about agendas? The audience has changed.
All right.
Everybody wants to hate on the girl with the NPC haircut, bro. That's the audience. I'm sorry.
Can I just jump in, Hawk? Because I definitely agree with that point. I think that is something that a lot of people refuse to accept. And there are a lot of people who need to check their biases, because some of the reasons why people criticize these movies are just absurd, and they're rooted in things that have nothing to do with the quality. But that being said, do you think, and maybe Chill, this isn't where you want to go, but I'm just going to throw it out there. If you stop me if you want to. Do you think that there is a problem at Lucasfilm when it comes to the Star Wars aspect and the way they've been putting these films together and the projects that they've been doing? Like, do you think that there is a problem?
I think that the problem is internal within the individual, and I think that the voices are very loud on Twitter, and I have many real-world friends that have literally no idea what any of the arguments are on Twitter about any agendas, anything. They're living their lives. Go to any high school, go to any college, and look at the people there. The young crowd, I'm sorry, guys, like, they outweigh us. They outweigh the sweaty comic book people.
I'm sorry.
You want that stuff, you got to watch your films.
That's not what I was asking.
I don't think there's an agenda.
Let me just qualify, because you're not answering what I was trying to ask. So I'll say it in a different way. From a quality standpoint, from a production standpoint, when you look at the fact that, you know, as Chill pointed out earlier, like, these movies were not planned very well in terms of, you know, a consistent track. Do you think that there is a problem there? Not people's agendas, but just from a creation standpoint, right? Do you think there's a problem there that needs to be addressed?
Well, I think there was a problem, and I think they have addressed it. I think stories like Andor, I think the Ahsoka show that's coming out, I think stuff they're pushing now, and the stories, the way they're being written now, are in a direct response to the way fans reacted to the sequels. I mean, I would just personally like people to be open to a young Luke Skywalker. It's going to have to include Ben Solo, though. Like, I just don't think we're ever going to get those stories, because people are always going to have some negative thing to say about the sequels. I don't know. It's tough for me, because yes, terrible decisions were made, but at the same time, I'm coming out of The Last Jedi like, yo, maybe they're not going to just copy pasta like they did Force Awakens. Like, I don't know. I'm a shill.
That's cool, dude.
Like,
that's cool.
People call me that, but I have like really serious issues with the Han
passion.
Solo of it all. Like, he's a deadbeat dad. Why'd they do that? Like, people don't actually, because I like The Last Jedi, and that opinion, they take it and run with it, bro.
I was trying to divert from that. The Last Jedi. I'm more so on like Kathleen Kennedy and consequences.
Well, okay. Let me ask this: it seems like, but who okayed the $300 million budget for an Indiana Jones movie? I'm not saying Indiana Jones doesn't deserve that money, but Indiana Jones does not need a $300 million budget to make it.
I do believe the budget was like a sensible high budget film, like 200 million or something like that.
Yeah, it just skyrocketed to 300.
Yeah, so no one planned it, and then plus they did some reshoots towards the end.
Reshoot. But okay, it's at that point. this movie probably cost as much as Justice League 2017 to create. That movie's budget 300 million. It
like
to
Fast
that.
and Furious 10 also, they have the same situation.
So
Actually, I want to drop that. Forget that it's an extremely high budget. Just pretend it was a normal high budget that's 200 million, like they plan for movies like this. Even then, I'm still just saying the fact that it didn't perform well is a problem big enough to look at your studio president and say, this isn't one movie, Scotty. This is like Willow. This is also the Solo thing that happened. And we are going to factor in that each of the Star Wars movies, the numbered ones, 7, 8, 9, made less money. I think we got enough. And you know, the fan base is a bit divided as well. And I don't know if that translates into a dollar figure, divided. But you can look at merchandise sale maybe of Andor and wonder, like, why are we giving Andor so much money when the viewership is low? Why, like, there's a lot of
people literally thought that like a recast Sebastian Stan Luke Skywalker would ever work. I think that shit is hilarious. We just got done with the
Sebastian Stan though.
But I'm just saying, like, people want to sit here and they want to trash Solo, and in the same sentence they're saying recast Mark Hamill. It was.
I think another issue financially is because of the success of a lot of comic book movies or movies. It's like, oh, well, if it made less than $1 million, if it makes less than $1 billion, apparently it wasn't a good movie, because we're so accustomed. There have been enough movies in the last 10 years that have made $1 billion, that's now the benchmark.
Kind of.
And I'm sorry, that's not fair.
And there's only been, when me and Kate were looking at, there's only been like 53 movies all time that have made $1 billion, right? It was some number like that, maybe 50, maybe 60.
A little bit more than that, yeah.
Okay, it wasn't that much though, so that's the thing. Listen, jury, fire Kathleen Kennedy. Chillmonger votes yes. Jaded Fanboy, your turn.
I say it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Would you do it? Is this Indiana Jones results?
No, because I hated Steven Spielberg from E.T. and he screwed over Indiana Jones. Mike. So I mean, like,
Michael
Spielberg hater.
Mike, God. Okay, Sean, fire Kathleen Kennedy after the results of this Indiana Jones movie.
I would say, with including everything and specifically now the results of this, yes, I would fire her. Yes.
Really?
K. SSJ, K. Sanctum, first Black Super Saiyan to arrive on this planet. Do not disappoint me, sir. Would you fire Kat? Go ahead.
I'm there pretty much with Sean, including everything. And this Indiana Jones, she got to go. I'm sorry.
After the results of Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny, is this enough for you to say fire? The same way Sergio was saying 100% yes.
No, and I don't think anyone at her level or Feige's level will be fired. I think they will leave on their own terms, even if it's a resignation, even if it's like, okay, yeah, it's on, even if they're like, so it's not going to be a public firing, guys.
Yeah. The contract will expire or, family emergency or something like that.
I think she's already like, she's said some things publicly that people didn't like. Have we seen her at a Comic-Con? Have we seen her at a celebration? Like, she's not really that much of a spokesman anymore. So I think she gets it.
Thanks for watching this video. We are recording it on our Saturday where I usually do my live stream. You can support the Jaded Fanboy, Scotty, Mike, and Sean. Our channels are down there. Thumbs up and bye. And recast T'Challa.